Hi there, I'm Nick Miller. I'm a speech and language therapist. And I've been a speech and language therapist for many years. And one of the things that it enables me to do is to actually know people who I've seen many years ago and can take a very long-term perspective on what kind of difference speech language therapy has made for them over their lives. So I'd like to just tell you about a few of the people I'm in contact with still, who I saw 20, 30 or more years ago as small children in the clinic where I used to work. The first is somebody who's now an internationally renowned surgeon, works as a researcher and surgeon at a very prestigious university in Britain. And I was emailing with him to ask what kind of impact he feels speech and language therapy made on his life, and his response was that, well, he wouldn't have had the life if speech language therapy hadn't intervened, because at the time I saw him, he was in the middle of a argument with the local educational authority about whether he could go to a normal school or a school for children with learning disabilities. And the difference that speech language therapy made initially was that we argued that he's perfectly alright intellectually, he'll be able to cope with mainstream school and ordinary primary school, but would need some support for his speech and language development. And that's what we gave him. And as he said, you know, if speech and language therapy hadn't intervened and hadn't won the argument about which school he should go to, then his whole life course would have been altered. And he feels that, you know, all the developments since then have vindicated the decision that was made, that speech language therapy believed in him and saw that he did have the capability and gave him the opportunity to show that. Another not dissimilar case was a young fellow who had a very severe stutter, alongside various other speech difficulties, and again asking him what kind of difference speech language therapy made to his life. He's saying, well, I still stutter, I'm in my 40s now, but I still stutter, but it's mainly in my head just, and what speech language therapy taught me was that firstly I can control my stutter, and they taught me ways in which I could control my stutter, but more than that, they gave me the confidence to know that even if I did stutter, even if I was disfluent, then I could still communicate my message. My message was as important as anybody else's message, and if people were upset or disturbed or in any way put off by the way I delivered my message, well, I'm trying my best, and if they're upset, that's partly their fault, their responsibility, their issue, but they should listen to what I have to say rather than how I say it. And he's saying that a lot of other people he knows who stutter have maybe gone into professions where they probably don't have to speak much, but he said that with the confidence he felt he'd been given, he was able to go into a profession which is become a solicitor and a lawyer, where he did need to communicate and did need to communicate in a convincing way, and he feels that, you know, if he hadn't had that input from speech therapy, he wouldn't have been able to realise his dreams and opportunities to get where he is today.
Hello, my name is Christos Salis. I'm a speech language therapist. I'm actually based at Newcastle at the moment, and I've always remembered this person, this family that I was seeing when I was actually a newly qualified clinician working in Hampshire, and at the time I was actually working with children. This goes back in 2000, 2001, thereabout, quite a long time ago. And I've always sort of remembered this particular child and this particular family, actually, this mother who was bringing the child to the health center I was working, and the query was whether the child had a hearing loss, whether there was actually some kind of syndrome that was actually not diagnosed. In any case, the presenting profile was one with language delay. And also, because of the child's posture looking downwards without any obvious sign of physical difficulty, it was really very difficult to maintain or establish eye contact with him. And also the play skills were a little bit delayed in my judgment after assessment. And I remember the sessions I was doing were actually essentially tried to establish consistent eye contact, mindful of course that the hearing abilities of the child were actually severely diminished. And Mum actually was observing the session. She was actually present in the session. The child at the time, I think, must have been about between 18 months or 2 years old. And essentially the sessions were actually to improve his play skills, but also improve his eye contact. We talked about signing, but there was actually reluctance to start actually introducing him to some signs. But in any case, the eye contact was actually one of the more fundamental aspects that we need to establish. So essentially my sessions were actually involving mother and in the play sessions that I was actually doing with the child. And after the first couple of sessions, actually, I've always remembered the mother's comment that essentially she framed it along the line, so you've managed to achieve in a couple of sessions, a couple of hours, everything that I haven't really been able to achieve in about 18 months or 24 months, whatever the child's age was. And this particular comment has always sort of stuck with me. And unfortunately, I then moved on, and I never really found out what happened to this little boy, actually, what the outcome was. So that was quite encouraging, actually, as a newly qualified practitioner, actually. Thank you.